you spent basically 2.5 years in the cabinet at a pretty high level. You seem to be one of the more active ministers. What do you think would have been the things that you were able to accomplish most of all? Because of the portfolio of Minister of Public Utilities, you had some of the country's most important assets under your remit.
Well, again, being an active minister, making yourself available in a firefighting environment, I must certainly takes up a lot of your time. So the concept of being active, I mean, you found yourself really straddling, trying to plan, but also trying to get things done and let things work. And I mean, sometimes to get things done. So some people say I was a very active minister, somebody that you could have gotten involved and get in contact with. And those are the types of, those are the things that you need to be a customer-centric minister. You find that, and to get things actually done, it required a lot of hands-on time to make it happen. Not that I think is the most ideal situation, but you recognize if you didn't, changing the structure, changing the system will result in a lot of heartache to a number of people who are waiting on immediate actions. So a lot of my time was actually spent, in actually doing a lot of things for a number of people, in the case of the water sector, dealing with a number of leaks, dealing with the problems in getting water. One might say, well, that wasn't your role as a minister. But the truth of the matter, if you did not get involved hands-on, you will find that a number of people would have suffered. You will see that there would have been a lot more leaks and so forth. So for example, so when I look at some of the successes that, for example, in Wassa, we were able to grapple and have a focused approach on dealing with the number of leaks that were out there. And I always kept the numbers going to the population and put a structure in place that will hold and let the population, keep them involved with the numbers. And by doing that, you also kept Wassa in check. So we were able to bring down the number of leaks from about 3,000 on average to a lot under 1,000. That required a lot of focused attention. In the water sector also, the whole bringing the population aware of the issues as it relates to water conservation. I spent a lot of time communicating in getting people to understand the reservoir levels and the links between what they are doing in their normal lives and how it impacts them with regard to water. That required a new approach in dealing with them with regard to water. A lot of my time was also spent in developing a comprehensive water plan, albeit that got me in a little bit of trouble at the end. But a comprehensive water plan that would have been able, in my mind, to provide the population with 24/7 water over a 4-year period. A lot of time was put in place in pulling that together from a Wassa perspective. I got so bogged down with Wassa that a lot of people saw me not only as the Minister of Public Utilities, but almost the Minister of Water. But the reality is, we did restructure, not with much fanfare, but we structured the top management of TN Tech and made that organization a lot more efficient, reduced the costs associated with running the organization so it could improve the efficiency. We restructured TSTT. That was an organization that, if it wasn't restructured, I am convinced would have gotten bankrupt by 2022. And therefore, in my mind, I saved a number of jobs that are presently existing in TSTT. Those people who have their job, at least they have a future in an organization that is sustainable. And we put TSTT on a path to be able to better execute their role as a provider and to be a lot more competitive. We increased the amount of people getting broadband services because I was very particular with regard to TSTT in getting broadband services. Broadband is a new currency. And therefore, I felt if we didn't have a lot of people, especially in the rural areas, getting broadband services, it would have negatively impacted on their ability to be citizens of the world. So I spent a lot of focus on making that happen and even putting broadband in public spaces. So TSTT, we did a lot of work there. Swim Call, this whole idea of restructure of recycling. We did a lot of work in the recycling industry and try to set that up. I mean, I had a strategic plan and we talked about turning waste into gold. So this whole concept of waste not being waste, but waste could be recycled, and putting a structure in place for recycling, which we recognize required a legislative component. So we spent a lot of work in doing this beverage container bill. And why, when I left, the bill was actually with all of the stakeholders for discussions. We felt we got some good feedback, and it was with all of the chambers getting their final feedback so that it could be brought into the parliament as a legislation. So we did a lot of work in doing that, in putting that beverage container bill, which would have been the foundation to get a lot of things happening in that particular sector. We worked on an energy conservation and energy efficiency policy for Trinidad and Tobago, which again was very important, and it was really the future, because we have to start to look and see how do we deal with our natural resources, with our natural gas, and we need to maximize the income that we get from natural gas. So putting natural gas or using natural gas, which is a limited resource, and putting it into inefficient use, using it in electricity where we are just burning it or using it inefficiently, whereas we could have simply been exporting it or using it as feeder product for other things. So energy efficiency and energy conservation became very important. And we started a conversation in the country, starting with the workplace, starting with getting energy efficiency into government buildings, starting the whole concept of recycling at your home and recycling in government buildings. So that trust into taking us into the new activities, that is something that I did in those areas: energy efficiency, energy conservation, energy into the whole idea of recycling.